Food. It's one of the few things human beings can't live without. And in order to feed our growing global population, we're going to need to find new and innovative solutions that challenge traditional approaches to food production. There's a new method where everyone can grow their own nutritious food.
This is called a vertex living wall, and once these plants completely grow out, it's going to be just a wall of food.
Do you know how to tell the difference between a fruit and a vegetable?
People usually think of fruits as things that are sweet, but in fact there are lots of fruits that are green and not sweet.
It's amazing how great food can taste when it's grown organically. Oh my goodness. That's an explosion. Join me, Philippe Cousteau, as we discover groundbreaking ways of producing wonderful, fresh food on Xploration Awesome Planet. One of the greatest advancements for the human race has been the development of agriculture. By learning how to cultivate important grains like rice, wheat, and corn, communities were able to control their food supply and live in one place. Today, our planet supports over 7 billion people, and in many areas, the fertile soil counted on for farming is decreasing. Welcome back to Awesome Planet. I'm Philippe Cousteau. The agricultural industry faces tremendous challenges as it works to feed a growing global population. Fortunately, the urban farming movement is providing innovative solutions that can help and meet that demand. Alegria Farms, located in Irvine, California, covers only 1 acre, but they grow over 100,000 plants. And get this, all these plants are grown above ground on a parking lot. A farm like this could exist on any open space in a city. A key aspect of this farm is the soil they use. It's much more organic than most other farms. That's why these vegetables are so full of nutrients.
Eric, I've been looking forward to this. What you're doing here is really amazing. I'm a foodie. I love to cook, so this is like just coming home.
That's awesome.
But let's start with this soil right in front of you. What is so special about this?
Well, as plankton is to the ocean, soil is to the earth. I mean, if you treat soil like your own blood and understand that everything that we eat that comes out of soil gets into our bloodstream. Mm-hmm. Now, the problem that's been occurring on this planet is we've been destroying or disrespecting soil.
Yes, we have.
And if you disrespect soil, you end up eventually killing most of the biology in it. And so that turns into this new cycle where we're going to have to throw fertilizers back in, synthetic fertilizers, to make up for the lack of organic matter or humus in the soil.
Now, big farms concentrate on producing high yields of food. But how nutritious is it? The saying, "You are what you eat," is essentially true. Many cases of autoimmune diseases that people experience are linked to a poor diet or nutritional deficiencies in their food. So eating nutrient-rich food is important, and the quality of food is partly determined by the soil from which it comes.
So if you look at this here, this is cocoa fiber. You see these root balls? This is coming off.
The soil Eric shows me consists entirely of decomposed organic matter, and the deeper he digs, the richer the soil.
If I go down below, you're going to see that as we get down below, we're getting a lot more what we call worm castings. But that's a ball of humus. Okay, that's 100% organic matter.
Organic matter.
And so humus is also known as soil glue. That's what's holding the soil together. Now, this will grow anything.
In one section of this farm, they grow plants in these giant socks filled with soil. This system uses less water and less fertilizer than a conventional farm, and yet these plants grow twice as fast.
So welcome to our socks farm. This is a new container system that I'm kind of now enamored with. At first we were struggling with it because we didn't have the right soils in there, but once we started blending our own soils and putting it in these polypropylene socks, you can see that it's kind of a loose mesh and they breathe.
Mm-hmm. Looks like they're all doing pretty well.
Eric has 9 rows of these socks just bursting with kale.
Take a bite of that and see what you think. I mean, look at that. See the leaf? how heavy the
Oh my
leaf
God.
structure is. A lot of flavor, though, right?
Taste the flavor. The
Yeah.
green is coming through. It's very rare that you can just say, you know what? I'm gonna eat raw kale because it tastes so bloody good without anything on it.
Yeah.
And this is one of those times.
Yeah. You can prop up plants any way you want with synthetic fertilizers, but and they look good. But the problem is a lot of times you're sacrificing the nutrient density. I mean, nature does it best. And that's really the bottom line.
Absolutely.
When we come back, Eric will show us even more ways to grow food in the city.
So this is our vertical hydroponic gardens. Now, we're not 100% hydro in here. We're actually kind of hydro-organic.
And later, we'll test your knowledge about fruits and vegetables. For instance, do you know which one a tomato is? Welcome back to Awesome Planet. Now, so far, we've seen what Eric Cutter has created on just 1 acre of land, a farm that could just as easily be located on an empty city lot.
I did a little quick Google search. There's almost 40 miles of this type of property between Los Angeles and Orange County that can be repurposed and turned into farms. 40 square miles.
It's Eric's vision to see hundreds of these farms throughout Los Angeles. And even if there isn't space available, Eric is helping to pioneer another type of urban farm.
Here's a brand new system. This is called a vertex living wall. And what this allows us to do is to actually go vertical instead of horizontal, but grow in soil. This isn't irrigated yet, but we irrigate up the side and run drip tape over the tops.
Okay.
But you can see how simple this is. And once these plants completely grow out, it's going to be just a wall of food.
In the past couple of decades, scientists have developed another way of growing food using a system called hydroponics, which is farming without soil. Water is mixed with nutrients through a series of pipes and delivered to these plants. The roots of the plants are surrounded by a coconut fiber, which absorbs the water.
Now, we're not 100% hydro in here. We're actually kind of hydro-organic.
And this is arugula.
This is arugula, so just go ahead and taste
When was the last time that you actually got to pull vegetables off a stem and eat them without having to wash them?
Right. No, these are...
Without having to worry about any
no
contaminants or pesticides or anything? Unfortunately, it's all too rare occasion.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sweet.
Yeah. And
peppery.
Wait until the pepper shows up.
Oh my goodness. That's an explosion.
Yeah.
This is the best arugula I've ever had, and I'm not just saying that, Eric. This is out of this world.
This farm focuses on two main things: growing food efficiently and making sure it's full of nutrients.
And basil works...
Eric then takes me to one of my favorite herbs, the basil plant.
Here's the stacking planter system and some of the Genovese basil we use. Take a leaf off of there and tell me what you think.
Just the smell is spectacular.
Yeah, it's really aromatic.
Oh my goodness.
Isn't that beautiful? So you can...
You know, and this is the thing, Eric, that when I go to supermarkets, I'm not surprised that people would rather eat junk food and things like that because they have flavor. But if they can taste something the way it's supposed to taste, it's better than any candy or junk food out there.
Ideally, the food we buy in a supermarket would be super fresh, but that's not always the case.
If somebody asked me what food would I eat, would it be organic, conventional, hydroponic, you know, aquaponic, I would say give me fresh. For example, lettuce loses 50% of its vitamin C in 3 days. Most of the lettuce you see in supermarkets is 5 days old.
Now, in case you're wondering what happens to all this food at Alegria Farms, there is an outlet. Nearby, there's a restaurant that uses the vegetables Eric grows. The food is often picked that same morning.
God, that milk is just pouring.
One of the more nutritious of all the vegetables here is romaine lettuce. And when Eric breaks it apart, white milk oozes out. This liquid has antioxidants, which are good for both the body and the brain. But the key, of course, is eating it while it's fresh.
But you can taste the flavors,
Eric, thank you. This is just
Rabbit
a
food.
revelation.
And
The best rabbit food I've ever had.
During the hustle and bustle of modern society, it seems we've gotten away from the important basics of having fresh food in our diet. And now, through technology, we can restore a much healthier way of eating. Coming up, what is a tomato? Is it a vegetable or a fruit?
Here's a tomato. You cut it open, and you can see that we have seeds inside it.
And later, we'll look at food waste and why so many people are unable to get enough food to eat.
Welcome back to Awesome Planet. I'm Philippe Cousteau. Many people may think that the difference between fruits and vegetables is pretty straightforward. But as we'll learn at the University of Pennsylvania, that's not always the case.
Fruits and vegetables grow in all types of climates. They can be found above the earth, on the earth, and in the earth. They also come in a variety of sizes, shapes, and flavors. To help us distinguish vegetables from fruits, we visited biologist Scott Pothig.
Usually we think of vegetables as green things like leaves or stems, or even non-green things like things that are in the ground, roots, potatoes, that sort of thing. But essentially anything that is not a flower or a product of a flower is a vegetable.
Rule of thumb: if you see seeds, it's a fruit and not a vegetable.
Something we all recognize as a vegetable, a head of lettuce, and we recognize it as a vegetable because it's got leaves, it's green, leafy, and of course there are no seeds in lettuce. I don't think you've ever seen seeds in a head of lettuce.
Since lettuce and these other plants have no seeds, they're vegetables. Seeds are one of the defining characteristics of fruits, and seeds come from flowers.
So a fruit is what a flower becomes after it's been fertilized. For example, you'll see an apple tree, and in the springtime, you'll see it covered with flowers. And then sometime later, you'll see that the tree is now covered with apples. And those fruits, they're what the flower was transformed into after it was pollinated, after it was fertilized.
So if fruits come from flowers and contain seeds, you may have to rethink what you consider a vegetable and what you consider a fruit.
Moving over here, we can see things that we recognize as fruits. All of these originally came from flowers. There's just a little example of that. We have the little peppers here. You can see flowers, and in fact, they become transformed into fruits here. People usually think of fruits as things that are sweet and colorful, and they think of vegetables as things that are not sweet and green. But in fact, there are lots of fruits that are green and not sweet. For example, a cucumber is a fruit. So here's a tomato. You cut it open, and you can see that we have seeds inside it. A classic example of a big confusion, of course, is the tomato. Because a tomato, people think of it as a vegetable because it's not sweet. You eat it as part of your dinner, for example, and it has seeds in it. It's produced by a flower, so we consider tomatoes fruits, not vegetables.
Of course, fruits are delicious, and we love to eat them. But more importantly, so do other creatures in the wild. For example, when a monkey comes across a piece of fruit in a tree, it will gladly eat it, seeds and all. But here's the catch. The monkey's digestive system isn't able to break down the seeds, so the seeds get left behind on the ground. Then they'll have a chance to grow into new trees. It's a brilliant system, really. By producing sweet fruit, many of these trees have figured out a way to ensure their survival.
What makes the world interesting is knowing what exists and having some knowledge about it. And of course, it's a lot of fun, actually, to know stuff so that you can tell your friends, oh, you may think that a tomato is a fruit, a vegetable, but it really is a fruit. And all of a sudden, you know, your friends, no, you're kidding me. But you say, but it's true. I heard it on television.
Welcome back to Awesome Planet. Now, unfortunately, the amount of food that we throw out each year is staggering. Around 40% of the world's annual food production is wasted.
Farmers are tireless workers. They endlessly till the land, and with careful planning, they raise crops that feed the world. Scientists have calculated that farmers produce enough food to feed 10 billion people. Unfortunately, much of this food is wasted, and millions of people are left starving. John Mandyke has studied the effects of this wastefulness. He's even co-written a book on it called Food Foolish. He's figured out just how much food is being wasted on an annual basis.
We create a mountain of food waste each and every year around the world. It's 1.3 billion metric tons of food waste. If you think that an elephant weighs 1 metric ton, think about 1.3 billion happy, healthy elephants standing in one pile. It's hard to imagine, but that's the amount of food waste we create each and every year around the world.
To grow food, it takes fertile soil, seed, fertilizer, and lots of water. For instance, about 5.4 gallons of water are needed just to grow a single head of broccoli. So even when food appears to be abundant, it still takes a lot of resources to produce.
All of that food got there in a way that had an impact on the environment. So when we throw it away, we are exacerbating the problems that we are creating with the environment, because we're going to have to overproduce to compensate for the fact that we're throwing so much food away. If we waste less of it, we're doing a big favor for the environment and how we can save the resources in the first place that it took to grow that food. You at home can do a lot to reduce food waste. You can start by just buying enough food that you know you're going to use, instead of buying all the food that you think you might need and then throwing 40% of it away, which is what happens on an average basis. But you also can think about ways that you interact with food in restaurants. There's no shame in bringing home the doggy bag and enjoying food the next day, because otherwise it's going to get thrown away too, and that has a consequence for the environment as well.
In many parts of the world, crops like rice, corn, and wheat are relied upon to feed the masses. Despite this demand, there's still great waste.
On the other side of the world, 2/3 of all food that is wasted happens at the production and distribution level. That's in places like Asia, where food rots in fields before harvest, or it rots in poor transportation networks, or it rots in open-air markets before people can buy the food.
Many developing countries simply don't have adequate transport systems to move these goods. And even if the food is transported, quality storage containers are needed to keep it fresh. And quite often, the storage is insufficient.
We live on a planet of 7 billion people, and only about 6 are getting enough food. So that right there tells you the inefficiency in our food system and the penalty we're paying with food waste. It's literally taking food off the table for the people that are hungry.
In his book, John notes that one of the most important crops in the world is the banana. They contain vitamins and minerals essential to human health. But unfortunately, bananas are highly perishable. If they get too hot, they spoil. To transport bananas, constant climate control is needed. Without it, the food is wasted.
India is a great example. India grows 28% of the world's bananas, yet it exports just 0.3%. And that's because in India in particular, greater than 50% of all the fruits and vegetables are lost. Many times they're lost because it's very, very hot and they over-ripen, and the refrigeration technologies aren't there to save the food.
World hunger is a tragedy that is so frustrating because of all the food that's being wasted.
Tonight alone, 1 in 9 people will go to bed hungry around the world. That's the equivalent population of the entire United States of America and the entire European Union that doesn't get enough food. Yet we create and we grow and we produce enough food to feed everybody. We need better technologies. We need better storage capabilities. We need better distribution methods. But no matter where the issue of food waste occurs, we know how to solve it. It's a matter of will.
People need to become aware of the scale and consequences of food waste. It negatively impacts both the human race and our environment. It's been predicted that there will be 9 billion people on our planet by the year 2050. Feeding all those people will certainly be a challenge. And as is most often the case, science and technology will provide some of our best solutions.
Food. It's one of my favorite things, and I think I can speak for most of us when I say that, though oftentimes in this day and age, many of us take food for granted. It was incredible to visit Alegria Farms. It was one of my favorite adventures so far. I never really appreciated how important soil nutrients were, that when we take care of the soil, the difference in the quality of our food is incredible. And then to imagine that that farm was basically built on a parking lot, and that we can grow food where we live, in our very backyards, bringing healthy nutrition into the middle of urban landscapes. And then, on a somewhat shocking note, the idea of just how much food is wasted in the world today, leaving people more impoverished and all sorts of other problems that maybe we'll just take a moment to think about what we can do to make a better, healthier planet for everyone. I'm Philippe Cousteau, and that's it for this week on Awesome Planet. We'll see you next time.
On this episode, what to do when a winter wonderland
It's gonna be pretty loud.
turns into a frozen darkness. Join us on the sheets of ice and the harsh wilderness of the Rocky Mountains on Xploration, Awesome Planet.
Welcome to Awesome Planet. I'm Philippe Cousteau. A few places show off the beauty of winter, like Banff National Park. Close to 1 million people travel here each winter to enjoy this stunning landscape, immersing themselves in a world of snow and ice.
Located about 2 hours north of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, you'll find a wilderness lover's dream in Banff National Park. For our winter adventure here, we've made the Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise our home base. The cold weather months turn Banff National Park into a winter wonderland. But while this time of year creates a beautiful white blanket over a pristine landscape, accumulating snow can present hazards. Each morning at Ski Lake Louise, Dave Petch and his co-workers gather before sunrise and create a daily plan to help avert one of the most dangerous aspects of the winter season: avalanches. Snowpacks have layers. Avalanches occur when a weak layer fragments and slides downward, taking massive amounts of snow and often trees, rocks, and whatever else may be in its path at increased speeds. They're incredibly dangerous and can happen when you least expect it.
Every day we come in and the first information that we're most into is the weather that's happened in the past 24 hours. The most important things for me is wind. I look to the terrain, knowing which way it faces to the wind, and I know where we're likely to find the deposited snow. Where the deposited snow winds up is where we have an avalanche problem.
You're doing some forecasting, you're really using science, and you're using geology and geography and like all these different things to understand this space and how the mountain works.
And it's constantly changing.
Once the team determines safety threats, avalanche control comes next. These explosives will loosen hazardous snowpacks, helping to mitigate greater threats.
I don't think it could be better conditions today. It's a beautiful blue sky. They had snow last night, so they definitely have some hazards. Then they've got about 20 pounds of plastic explosives. Hey, a snowboard, plastic explosives, what could go wrong?
Atop the ledge is about as far as I can go. From here, Dave and Kat make the dangerous walk out to prep the explosives.
Sometimes getting into the terrain is the hardest part.
Now, to ensure the explosives don't roll down the hill, Dave ties them to a safety line.
There we go.
Each igniter is identical. So Dave and Kat know that once they start the fuse, they'll have 2.5 minutes before the blast.
Hey, we're 30 seconds in flight 6, 30 seconds.
And you can see how quickly that snow layer collapses down the hill. And once clear, Dave and Kat will ski over to inspect the area and ensure they don't need to blast that spot again. As the skis cross the bomb site, they can tell that the new snow layer is much more stable. This blast has been a success.
31233.
About 100 yards away, another target is set.
So that's a 30-second warning. It's gonna be pretty loud. That shakes you to the core. Your entire body just goes boom with the shockwave. Looks like a good result.
And while these bombs were incredibly impressive, coming up next, I'll make my way down the mountain to look at another method of avalanche control and then how science and safety go hand in hand. Welcome back to Awesome Planet as we examine avalanche safety at Ski Lake Louise. Right now, the safety team is ski cutting, basically zigzagging down a steep slope to loosen the snow. You can see how easily the snow releases from the pressure of the skis. Avalanche safety team member Kat Reed explains those dynamics.
Not all snow is created equal.
Not all snow is created equal.
So this is not all the same.
When it's actually on the ground, it's always changing. It never stays the same. A big factor that changes it is temperature.
So is it melting and then refreezing, or
It's changing shape.
Really?
So the main things that it wants to do is turn into a nice friendly circle or a big evil square. So if you think about a glass full of ice cubes and you're rattling it all around, the ice cubes don't want to stick to each other. They're just loose ice cubes in the glass. But if you think of nice tight circles like sand in a glass, there's less air spaces between them and they're closer to each other. So over here we can see where the snowmobile's been. So it's been compacted and we've got some nice round shapes here. And
this
you can
is
see
the stuff we like to make snowballs out of.
Yeah, and it sticks together really nicely. And underneath this is the sugary crystals here.
Good heavens, it really is like sugar.
And then if you look really closely on my glove, you can actually see the square sides of the crystals.
It's kind of big,
there.
chunky, gritty bits.
Yeah, and that's the reason why it's not sticking together.
So with the evil squares, it's more likely
Like sugar.
to slide.
Yeah,
So when it warms up, this will soften and become friendly circles.
eventually. Yeah, it's a bit of a process.
The force and pressure of avalanche snow can be deadly. In the backcountry, it can end up sending down just a few pounds of snow, or in more serious situations, a few thousand tons of snow and debris. I made my way to nearby Yoho National Park to meet with avalanche safety member Brian Webster from Parks Canada to see a few ways to prepare for the worst case scenario.
The three key tools that we talk about, I like to refer to them as just one tool with three components. So you've got the transceiver, you've got the shovel, and you've got the probe. And the idea is with the transceiver is that I'll get very close to you very quickly.
But it may look like this.
It may look like this, and it's like, well, should I start digging here or should I start digging here? So that's where the probe comes into play. And I very systematically start probing in that area. I'm waiting until I feel something that feels like this.
Gives a little
got
bit,
a little bit
soft.
of give.
Okay.
Exactly.
So once I've located that, I'll leave the probe in. And if I don't have a shovel, I'm useless. I can't do anything. I can only do a limited amount of stuff with my hands.
Because I want to test this theory, because I can dig pretty quickly with my hands. So why don't we see how fast, in 10 seconds, you can dig with that shovel versus me with my hands.
Okay.
Although this snow is much softer and lighter than an avalanche pack would be, I thought I could give Brian a challenge.
Dun, dun. Say when.
First person to ground.
After 10 seconds, though,
Okay.
All right.
not so much.
How'd you do?
I think I lost. You cleared out a huge area, and I just basically barely got to my feet.
Brian mentioned the transceiver that everyone in the backcountry should have. I wanted to put this system to the test for a backcountry novice like myself, so I let Brian go off and hide the transmitter as if he was a member of our group who'd gotten caught in an avalanche.
So we want to turn our transmitter into a receiver. We
Okay.
want to go from send mode to search mode.
Okay.
So to do that, you just slide that red button, depress it, and slide it to the right. Excellent. Okay. And it's telling me that we have one buried signal that it's picking up, and it's roughly 26 meters away. And there's also an arrow, a directional arrow. So what your job is, Philippe, is you've got to go and find your friend.
Okay.
All right,
Pressure's on.
pressure's on here.
Okay. This might be harder than I thought.
Are your numbers getting smaller?
My numbers are getting smaller. We're
Okay.
at 7.4.
You're going in the right direction.
1.8, 0.5, 0.2, right over
Okay,
here.
so let's say this is as close as you can get.
Okay.
So I come in with my probe. Once I've located him with the probe, then I'll pull my shovel out and we'll...
Oh, there it is.
So you were right on the money.
Victory.
Very first time. So that's a good testament to this particular transceiver because you've never
very
used
accurate.
it before and you figured it out almost on your own.
That's incredible. Without this,
That's the only way to find it.
it'd be looking for a needle in a haystack.
Yeah. Everybody that goes out into the backcountry, recreating in avalanche terrain, they need a transceiver,
Definitely.
they need a shovel, they need a probe, and they need some education so that they hopefully don't get caught in an avalanche to begin with.
I'm sold.
Up next, testing technology for snow travel developed thousands of years ago.
This is a revelation.
And later, adventure on a wall of ice. Welcome back to Awesome Planet in Alberta, Canada. As the seasons change in Banff National Park, nature and humans have to find ways to adapt to the coldest months of the year.
We've returned to the beautiful Fairmont Chateau Lake Louise. We're just a few hundred feet outside the front door. Several feet of snow have accumulated. And while that makes walking around difficult, exploring this wilderness is possible utilizing a technology that dates back thousands of years.
Mike Vincent, a mountain guide on property, invited me to join him for a trek into this snowy landscape with the help of snowshoes.
This is a snowshoe. Most people don't actually get a chance to hold a real one.
That's almost as big as I am.
It is. It's an amazing machine. This is the North American solution for snow travel. Europeans lived in deep snow too, but they never did it. They developed that other device that is lots of fun, and I was doing it this morning.
A little skiing.
A little skiing.
Yeah.
So that's the European solution to snow travel, and this is North American. So this is Alaskan, this is called the Ojibwe, and this is a bear's paw, for obvious reasons. This is a big pack, long travel distance, straight line snowshoe when you're carrying lots of weight.
Okay.
This one's for more bushy conditions where that pointed tip is going to go through the bushes. And this one's for turning on a dime. In really tight terrain, you can just turn right around on that snowshoe.
I love that.
Mike set me up with a long-distance snowshoe for our trek into the forests surrounding Lake Louise.
If you can walk, you can snowshoe.
Exactly.
All right. Oh my goodness. This is a revelation.
Without these on, we'd be swimming through here.
You know, there's not many things these days that a 1,000-year-old solution is just as good, if not better,
Isn't that amazing?
than a modern-day solution.
The science behind this simple technology is weight distribution. By creating a larger imprint, weight disperses more evenly, preventing you from sinking into the deep snow.
I'm going to step out onto the snow without my snowshoe on. Let's see just how effective these things are. There we go. Well, there you have it, folks. The difference between a snowshoe and no snowshoe.
Do you think they're working?
I think they're working.
Humans aren't the only ones that have to adapt for winter. Walking through this forest leaves you in a sense of amazement for these magnificent trees that will support pounds of accumulated snow for a few months each year.
This is a pretty hostile environment in the wintertime.
This is the subalpine forest, the highest elevation forest in Canada, and they have to be adapted to these heavy snow loads, because when you look up, there's a lot of weight on these trees, and if they were oaks or elms or maples reaching up to the sky like this, their branches would be broken off that first winter, whereas these trees are growing like this, and the branches are very flexible, so they'll load up, and eventually they'll just shake it off and come up like this.
Spring back out.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Are they still photosynthesizing?
No, not in the wintertime. They're evergreen, but the tree's basically in a state of hibernation till the spring.
I see.
Another example of adaptation lives below the frozen surface of Lake Louise.
Stunning. Now beneath us is lake. This is where we were canoeing.
We
just
were
few
on a
months
canoe
ago.
right here.
Now we've got how many inches of ice?
On a big year at the end of the season, there might be 3 feet of ice here.
How are the fish surviving in these frigid waters?
Yeah, and you'd think from our perspective that it is frigid, but from the fishes, it isn't. It's only the air that gets cold, not the water. So what happens is this lake is quite deep. It's 230 feet deep, so only the top 3 feet would freeze. The highest the water temperature might get in the summertime here is maybe 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and then down to maybe 34 during the wintertime. So the fish are fairly sheltered from these radical temperature extremes that you and I are dealing with.
This journey around Lake Louise has reminded me of the breathtaking beauty of Mother Nature and its remarkable ability to survive and adapt through the harsh elements of winter.
Welcome back to Awesome Planet. Now, one of the most dynamic elements of winter is when water reaches that magical 32-degree Fahrenheit temperature and solidifies into ice.
This time of year, the mountainsides put on a visual showcase. Water, typically cascading down from these rocks, has come to a tranquil pause. I met up with Carl, a guide from Yamnuska Mountain Adventures, to see how the cold winter temperatures alter many of Banff's iconic waterfalls.
It really is. Spectacular scenery, my goodness.
Yeah.
What a beautiful place.
These limestone canyons are kind of very typical for the Rockies. It's a soft rock and tends to be very fractured, and as a result, it tends to produce these slot canyons and good seepages for water, freeze up in the winter and let us go ice climbing.
After a very icy 1-mile trek, we arrive at an incredible destination.
So this is it.
This is the canyon.
Oh my goodness.
This area is called Johnston Canyon. And this is the upper falls. So you can see kind of a playground for ice climbing.
Indeed. Oh my goodness.
Within these layers, you can even see little nuances that teach you about each section.
And you can see different colors in the ice. If you look, we see some very blue ice kind of in the cave over here. And that ice is often the most dense, pure ice, very low air and snow content, which means it's really hard, really solid. And then the other parts of the ice are much more white, which obviously has more snow or more air. And you might see where it's about to melt, it takes on a bit of a greenish tinge, so kind of along the sides of the water there, it's a little more greenish than what we see over here. And then maybe a little bit of gray ice there where we can see how thin the ice is, and there's some rock behind it that we're seeing.
So we're looking through the ice to see the gray.
Carl Carl came prepared to get us on this dramatic frozen wall. Now, in order for me to safely climb ice, he first needs to set up a few anchor points at the top.
He's free soloing, which means he's actually climbing without any protection. He has a rope tied to him, but it's actually anchored at the bottom. So what happens is he climbs to the top with the rope, runs it through some carabiners at the top that's attached to a tree or some other sort of attachment point, and then that rope will run back down. He's been here so many times that this is the kind of thing that it's okay for him to do, definitely not for me.
Rope. Even over the course of a day, things change fast in the ice world. What we'll often see in the morning when it's really cold, as the sun comes around, the top of the climb is getting cooked in the sun, and it might be above freezing. The bottom of the climb is still here in the dark, in the shadows. It's, you know, -10, -20, and there's a huge temperature difference between the top and the bottom. It creates so much stress in the ice that the ice is almost explosive.
Now that I know the little details to be aware of, it's time to put my climbing skills to the test.
Looks a little steeper from there, eh?
It always does. It always does.
Up next, the safety line is set, and I get a chance to see just how solid this ice really is. Welcome back to Awesome Planet in Banff National Park. I'm climbing this steep cliff of frozen water.
I want to move like a rock climber, and I don't think it's good.
Well, you may have to there.
Really?
On that kind of technical grade, we start to bring in some rock moves. Nice job, Philippe. You're almost there, Bubba.
The strength needed to ascend this wall is no joke. It's a matter of precision and patience, even as your arms and legs start to move slower and slower, aching with each movement. I'm willing to admit that this was one of the hardest sports I've tried in a very long time. But the challenge was worth it once I reached the top.
Run! Nice.
Well, first time ever ice climbing, and it was even more exciting, thrilling than I thought. It always looks a lot steeper when you're up there looking down than when you're down looking up. But it was a pretty amazing way to experience the wintertime and really get a sense of the ice and the snow here in this part of the world. It gives you a whole new appreciation for frozen water. That's for sure.